What's going on, guys? Kaiser here, and today I'll be taking a look at the cameras on the iPhone 11 Pro. I'll also be comparing these cameras to the camera on the iPhone 10 just to see if there's any real difference in image quality. With that said, let's get to it. Alright, now I know this may seem like a pretty unfair comparison considering that the iPhone 11 Pro has its new triple camera setup with ultra wide, night mode, and the ability to shoot 4K with the front facing camera. However, I'm only using the iPhone 10 as a reference to see if the actual image quality has improved. Now, aside from the additional camera and features, the specs of these two cameras are pretty much the same. The real difference is the way these two process images and the dynamic range, but we'll take a closer look at that later. For now, I'm going to post a couple of unedited images, and I want to see if you guys can tell which ones were taken with the iPhone 11 Pro and which ones were taken with the iPhone 10. Alright, so some of these images look pretty much identical, even at 1:1 in Lightroom. Most of the iPhone 11 Pro images are slightly brighter and retain more details in the highlights and in the shadows. Now this is where the better dynamic range of the iPhone 11 Pro comes into play. However, there were some instances where I felt that the 11 Pro brightened the images too much, and as a result, they looked a bit washed. Now, though the 11 Pro retained more details and the 10 looked like it added some smoothing effects, the 10 definitely did a better job with the colors in this image. Now, when you jump into portrait mode, you clearly see the difference in the way these images are processed. The 11 Pro is much more vibrant, it does a better job with white balance, and it retains more details. Now in this image, I don't know that the 11 Pro retains so much more detail because of the dynamic range or because of the way that the 10 was processed, or a combination of both. And I say that because the way that the iPhone 10 is processed here is similar to the way that I edit my images, but with a bit more skin color. These are some images that I took with my Nikon D810 and 850. So if you notice, there's not a lot of details in the shadows, and that's not because of the lack of dynamic range. There were actually details in the raw images. This is actually because of my style of editing where I adjust the blacks and shadows in order to get a more cinematic look, which is kind of what the iPhone 10 portrait images look like. Alright, so at this point, I pretty much determined that the overall image quality was indeed better on the iPhone 11 Pro. So I headed back out to shoot some raw images using Lightroom Mobile. Now, with all the emphasis that Apple is placing on these cameras, you'd think they would include some more pro features, like allowing you to shoot raw and manually adjust your ISO, shutter speed, and aperture, but they don't. So to do that, you're going to need a third-party app. So after I shot my images, I synced them with Lightroom. Now, normally I wouldn't overprocess my images like this when editing, but I wanted to see how far I could push them, and surprisingly, they held up fine. Here you can see me bringing back some of the details in the sky. Now, in most cases, you're going to have to use a RAW file to do this because JPEG images don't have as much information. Alright, so just like the photos, the dynamic range and the way that video is processed is the same. The iPhone 10 is a lot darker in the shadows and it lacks detail. The iPhone 11 Pro is much better. Now, as far as low light, the iPhone 11 Pro has night mode and the iPhone 10, well, it has a flash. These images pretty much speak for themselves. And considering this is pretty much no light, I'm really impressed with night mode. And here's an ultra wide shot. Now, the quality of the ultra wide lens isn't the best, but it's definitely cool to have because it allows you to get a different perspective. Alright, so the overall image quality of the 11 Pro is definitely better than the 10, although I wouldn't say that there's a huge gap between the two as far as image quality is concerned. However, when you throw ultra wide and night mode into the mix, then yeah, this is a big improvement for the cameras in general. Now, if you're a casual user uploading images to Instagram and Facebook, the iPhone 10 is more than capable. And I seriously doubt that your friends or family will look at your photos and say, wow, what happened to the details in the shadow? But that's just my opinion. On another note, I'd like to give a special thanks to China and London for helping me shoot this video. So until next time, peace.